Welcome everybody to the Office of Undergraduate Research Education Series. Today we have an undergraduate researcher panel. Our panelists is Eliana Massey, Nopper, Peitz, and Kishan Thambu. Today is a virtual event and it's being recorded, so please mute yourself and turn off your camera to get the best experience. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat feature, or you can speak when you are invited by the speaker. And this is the event evaluation. We would love everybody to fill this out. But we want to remind all the Europe and early exploration scholars that they must complete this evaluation in order to receive credit for the event. And we want to remind everybody the mission of the University of Utah Office of Undergraduate Research is to facilitate and promote student and faculty collaborative research in all disciplines throughout the University of Utah campus. We acknowledge that this land, which is named for the Ute tribe, is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. The University of Utah recognizes and respects the enduring relationships that exist between many indigenous peoples and their traditional homeland. We respect the sovereign relationship between tribes, states, and the federal government, and we affirm that the University of Utah's commitment to a partnership with Native nations and urban Indian communities through research, education, and community outreach activities. And I'd like to introduce today's panelists.
Yeah, so I'm Kishan Thambu. I will be the facilitator today, and we'll just do quick introductions. And so we'll go over some questions, and if you have any questions that you want to ask us, we'll go over it at the end. Just put it in the chat function. But yeah, so my name is Kishan Thambu, and I'm majoring in computer science. I'm in my 4th year, and but I will be here another year to do the master's. So yeah, we'll go with it.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Peitz. I'm majoring in psychology and political science. This is also my 4th year. I'll be finished this summer. Woohoo, yay. Then I'll be moving on to do my master's of social work and my master's of public health at the University of Utah. Go ahead.
My name is Nopper. I am currently double majoring in chemistry and biology, and I'm currently in my 3rd year and plan to graduate next year in May.
And then my name is Eliana Massey, and I am majoring in UCM studies, which is a major that I created through the Bachelor of Undergraduate Studies program. And then I'm also majoring in philosophy of science and pursuing a certificate in community engagement, and I'm currently a junior.
So we're gonna get started with the first question, which is why did you get involved in undergraduate research? And we'll start off with Ali.
Yeah. So I got involved in undergraduate research because initially I was on the pre-med track and I was only majoring in biology. And as I was taking my core class that I needed for the biology degree, I had to take organic chemistry 1. And I fell in love with the subject and became really passionate about chemistry, which I had never really experienced before at that level. And so I felt like it would be a disservice to myself if I didn't at least try to do research in chemistry and see if instead of med school, that might be a path for me. And so I joined a lab after applying to a bunch of them and am now part of the Roberts Lab for the past over a year now. And I'm doing organic chemistry synthesis work there.
Awesome, thanks for that. And then Eliana, do you want to describe why did you get involved in undergraduate research?
Sure. So I actually started during my first semester of my freshman year. And I started because I wanted to work at the Natural History Museum of Utah, and I went onto the youth employment page and I saw that they had several different job postings. And one of them was a job posting for learning sciences or educational psychology research assistant to help study one of their exhibits related to climate change. And I was really interested in that because I had previously worked in an educational setting and done work related to environmentalism, and I was just really excited about the project. And so I applied and I got that position, and then I ended up working there for the about a year, and then since then I've worked in several different research positions, but it all kind of started just because I found opportunities that I was interested in, and
Awesome, thank you for sharing. And then Ava, do you want to go over why you did undergraduate research?
Sure, absolutely. So I originally got involved in undergraduate research through the Access Scholars Program. If you are a STEM major, you might know about it, you may have heard of it. I used to be studying biochemistry myself. I was double majoring in biochemistry and psychology. And through the Access program, I was matched with a chemistry lab where I did RNA research for 2 years. I absolutely loved the work, but I also found out through doing that work that I did not want to be a doctor, and I definitely didn't want to do my PhD instead. So I decided to kind of branch out and figure out what I did want to do, which led me to pursuing my current double major, which is now psychology and political science. That was originally how I got involved. I knew that I enjoyed research. I wanted to continue to do research, albeit not in STEM anymore. So I ended up joining the Office of Undergraduate Research as an employee with all of these lovely people. And now I do some research for the office itself. I'm involved in the Institutional Review Board as a clinical research person, I guess you would say. And then I also work up at the Department of Surgery as a clinical research coordinator for the University of Utah Hospital. So yeah, I've been pretty involved in research and I very much love it.
That's awesome. That's really inspiring to hear. And then I can give a little insight as to why I did undergraduate research. And so in high school, I got involved in research, and to be quite honest, I think my experience in high school was a little bit disorganized because my faculty member was a bit disorganized himself. But it led me wanting to continue doing research in college. And so at the time, I was a biomedical engineering major, but going on, I was taking a lot of the classes that my AP credits we sort of went over the material already in my AP class in high school. And so undergraduate research for me going to freshman year was a great way for me to get involved with really advanced and in-depth material for specifically biomedical engineering without actually having to take the advanced classes yet, because I was not able to have to take the prerequisites. And so because of this, I thought undergraduate research would be a great way to do so. It would be a great place to start and start learning, sort of the real world applications of it. Since then, I've sort of shifted my research interests throughout the years to be more fitting to what I like. But that's why I got started at research. And so we'll move on to our next question. And so our next question is, what was the most exciting thing you learned from undergraduate research? And I can start it off again. I think the most exciting thing about undergraduate research that I've learned is I learned more about myself in terms of how I specifically learn, how I study, how to time manage and balance my work-life activities. And, throughout the years, I've also been more realistic with deadlines. And so these sort of life skills with balancing work and making sure I'm doing my research effectively and I'm being realistic with my goals and my expectations it takes some time and practice to getting used to. And I think it may not seem fun at first, but when you figure out things about yourself to spend less time and to get the most out of it, then you have more free time. And I think that's what is for me is the most exciting thing, because I figured out more about myself specifically. And so Ava, do you want to go next?
Sure. So the most exciting thing I learned, there are so many things that I've been able to learn, but kind of piggybacking off of what you said, I really learned more about myself and my work style, which is a really, really great thing to learn when you're an undergraduate. Kind of what you want to do, what you don't want to do as much, what you can and can't do, what your skill sets are, because a research experience, especially as an undergraduate, is kind of a real life work experience, right? You're working with a boss, you're working with a team, and you're doing project-based work. So in my project-based work, I learned a lot about the inner machinations of DNA and RNA, which was really exciting for me. It still is exciting to me. I learned how to present at an international conference. I learned how to travel with your work team. And I've also learned how to market myself, truly. So, as I mentioned, I've had a wealth of different experiences within research and throughout the university. But I wouldn't have been able to have those opportunities if I didn't know the skills that I know now about how to talk about myself, how to talk about my work, and how to understand the opportunities that are coming my way. I'm super grateful for all of the mentors that I've had that have taught me how to put myself out there. I think that's the most exciting thing I've learned.
That's great to hear, Ava. And then we'll hear from Eliana.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can't really name like one specific thing. I think that one thing that really stands out to me is the relationships that I've built through research have been really valuable to me. I've been able to make friends, and I've also been able to develop relationships with mentors who have really changed my life, and I feel like have really helped me know more confidently like what direction I want to go in, or what I should do to get there, and also introduce me to community members and other academics and other people in my field who can help me work towards my goals. And so I'm really grateful for that. And as I mentioned previously, I've worked in a lot of different research settings. I've worked in multiple different kinds of research at the Natural History Museum. I also have worked for the Utah State Historical Society, the National Park Service, Digital Matters Lab, Oral History Archive, the Office of Undergraduate Research, all these different things. And I really value the diversity and variety of experiences that I've been able to have through all of those different positions. I've been able to learn so many different skills, and I think it's made me a lot more well-rounded and helped me to be able to be more interdisciplinary and apply concepts from, one class that I'm taking to research I'm doing in another context, or apply something that I've learned from a previous internship to a future job. And so I'm really grateful for all the opportunities I've had and all the relationships I've been able to build. And I feel like it is really foundational to like the future of my career in education, and helping me feel confident that this is the direction I want to be going. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, that's really great to hear, Ellie. And then Ali, do you want to speak to that?
So I would say I was pretty actually apprehensive of going into research at first. Like I said, I was a pre-med track. So I was planning on doing like more clinical jobs and programs that had a lot of like communication with different team members and things like that. I really wanted to interact with people as a part of my future job. And in my mind, research was like very like independent, like you work at your hood or wherever you are and you don't speak to anyone. It's like very isolating, as sometimes you see in like movies and in media. But it's been anything but. It's been the most collaborative experience I've ever had, and I am really looking forward to having it as a career, as I hope to do a PhD in organic chemistry after undergrad. And whether it's like through your PI, like we've said, we've all had really good mentors at some point in our lives. Those people you never forget, and their support really is like what gets you through the program itself. And I would say even just like the people that you work with, I have a lot of grad students that I work with one-on-one, and they're always like checking in through either like subgroup meetings, major group meetings, if you have presentations. It is way more collaborative than I ever expected. And I think that's why I've enjoyed it so much, because it is social as well as academic. So it lets you allow yourself to be more well-rounded in all those respects.
Thank you, Ali. And yeah, like I just want to reiterate, like research doesn't have to be something where you are just going into the lab or wherever you're researching just to learn about one particular topic. It's sort of all encompassing in terms of networking, social life, work-life balance, and you learn more about yourself and your own interests. And so I think everyone here sort of spoke to that. And I think it's really cool. So we'll move on to our next question. And so we'll start with Eliana, and our question is, what was a challenge you experienced and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When I was thinking about this question before the panel, I was thinking about how in different fields or in different types of research, there's different, there's different emotional weight to the topics that you're researching. If you're researching RNA, it's not quite the same as researching, genocide or domestic violence or something like that, which are often something you might research if you're doing humanities or social sciences research. And so I think it is important to take care of yourself and to recognize that your humanity and your empathy are important tools for analysis, but that strain also has an intellectual and emotional effect on you. And so you do need to take care of yourself and be selective about, what you're pursuing and thinking about how that is not just benefiting others, but also benefiting you and why it matters to you, and just sort of returning to that and grounding in that, I think, is really important if you're doing that kind of research. And it might not be something that you're used to doing coming from high school or something like that. You might be used to talking about heavy topics once in a while, but if you're researching something that's heavy 10 hours a week, that's a really different experience. And so I think that it's good to think about that before you go into it, and then also to kind of check in with yourself and make sure that you're taking care of yourself, and that you also are talking with other people who are doing similar work and understanding why you're doing that work and what you can do to engage with community while also doing your task.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really great point, Ellie. Ali, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, kind of in a different regard, kind of the same idea. So I do, like I said, I do STEM research, so I do organic chemistry research, which is very different and doesn't have, the emotional depth that you were talking about. But I would say you still need to take care of yourself in whatever kind of studies that you're doing. Because instead of emotionally grueling, this type of research, you're standing for it could be 8 hours straight, and you're doing a lot of lab work and you are trying not to mess up and things like that. And I always thought that research was very straightforward, and you do a procedure, you get a result, you report the result, it's successful things. And obviously there's failures, but that is not the case at all. I've been working on the same project for over a year now, and it consists of so far 4 steps that I have had to do over and over again, and try to twist them and change the conditions of my reactions and everything with the help of my PI and different mentors. But I would just say, don't get discouraged if you aren't getting the results that you want, no matter what discipline you're studying. I think that's kind of the point of research, is to keep going and be kind of have a determined and positive mindset. Because if you expect a result immediately, the second you start research, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed. And you want to make sure you're having the passion for the research experience, and not just the passion for publishing results and things like that. So,
Yeah, for sure. I think having patience is really great value of research. It's a great opportunity to learn it and to be able to practice it in a research setting. Ava, do you want to speak to what challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that in the research experience, I love that you mentioned how important it is to persevere, and how important it is kind of to not define yourself by your success. I think that a big part of that is kind of going into the research experience, or even if you're already in research, going to the next step of the research experience or the step after that, with kind of a humbleness, I guess. There's a huge learning curve to any field that you go into. Doing research in general is a learning curve. Learning how to submit to get published, using the technology, it's a learning curve no matter where you go. Obviously, there are some different types of learning curves depending on what discipline you're conducting research in. But I think that there's like the dual thing you have to hold in your mind of giving yourself grace to learn, and also remembering your passion for the field and putting in the effort to learn the things that are really challenging. So one of the challenges that I'm currently experiencing, I mentioned that I now work at the Department of Surgery. It's a huge learning curve to learn all of the patient intake software. And my specific role is I'm in charge of the biobank for the Department of Surgery. So all of the tissue comes through me, which means that there's a lot of technology that I need to interface with. And that's a huge learning curve. But I'm doing it for a reason. It's good to remember why I'm doing it. Just as for you, it's good to remember why you're doing something. So when you have to learn that new technology, or you have to submit to a journal and they make you rewrite your submission like a million times, it's worth it for the learning process.
Yeah, and sort of to bounce back on like what Ava said, I think it's really easy to face sort of imposter syndrome in these settings of research, because you have so many different faculty members, postdocs, and people involved in the research setting where they are just experts and they've been working with this kind of the discipline and subjects for many years. And as an undergraduate student, you go in like empty-handed with no knowledge, and you're like expected to sort of contribute towards the lab. So it's really easy to be overwhelmed in these kinds of settings and to not to feel like you're not doing enough, or to you're not keeping up. But I think one way to go about that and to make sure is to keep reminding yourself, like at the end of the day, you're here to learn, and everyone has been through that point at some part of that research journey. And not only that, but there's also many reasons why you should have like an open mind when it comes to learning new things and being sociable. And then also like at the end of the day, the people that are in your lab or research setting are there to help you, and they're there to make sure that whatever is being actively researched is best done, or is done in the best way. And so creating an environment that's collaborative and safe for you to learn and to ask questions is really important. And so I think I've been able to utilize that, and I didn't. At first, I was really struggled with asking questions. I was like, I don't want to look stupid. I'm like, I don't know if this is the right question to ask, but sometimes it's just something you have to ask, and it's a great learning step in terms of getting out of your comfort zone and diving deep into a specific topic where you have absolutely no expertise. So like sort of like Ava said, like there's also been many skills that have translated to current day. Like, as a computer science major, I have to work with the Center of High Performance Computing Center, which is like a big computer that can do a lot of heavy computing stuff. And so in order to learn that, I had to go through months and months of figuring out how to use that, right? And so at first, like, I was like, I'm not even working on my research, like is this like leading anywhere? But those skills that I've learned in those few months, like from a couple of years ago, are like still being used today in like the research projects I'm working on. And so like even if things like go way beyond the timeline you expected, or you're not getting the results you expected, I think everything that does happen in between that is sort of a learning process, and you can always get something from it. So then we'll move on to our next question. And what is one piece of advice you would give to students who are thinking of doing research with faculty? And we'll start with Ava.
Awesome. So one piece of advice that I would give you, whether you're thinking of starting doing research with faculty, or you're already doing research, you're somewhere in the research process, don't be afraid to ask questions of your PI, of your mentor, of the people who have been working in your lab longer than you have, whether they be undergraduates, graduates, postdoctoral candidate people, students, whatever they want to call themselves. Whoever's in your lab, ask them questions. Like Kishan said, like they are there to help you, they're there to guide you. The really cool thing about research is that everybody has also started from square one in your lab, in your field, right? Like there was a place where they didn't know what they were doing either. So ask those questions. Otherwise you might end up like me. I got made fun of for years because I made the wrong solution, because I misplaced a number. So whoopsie, I still get made fun of for it. Ask questions.
Yeah, thank you. And then, Eliana, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. I think so for people who are interested in our, early on in their college career, I would really recommend, getting started as soon as you can. I think that the sooner that you get started in research, the more time you have to figure out what you really are interested in and really care about, and the more time that you have to develop a project and see it go through multiple stages, which is also valuable. And I think, everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people have mentioned that, they started out thinking, they're gonna do one thing and then things kind of changed. And that's to be expected. And so I think that getting involved in research early on can help you sort of clarify, like, this is what I want to be doing, or this is not what I want to be doing. And even if the research you're doing ends up being in a field that you don't go into, it still is valuable experience, and it still is an opportunity to build connections and learn. And so I would really just recommend getting started as early as you can, even though it can be a little bit intimidating. Often you are not really expected to know a lot coming in. Like, it is part of your faculty members' job to train you. And so you don't need to worry too much about, like, oh, I don't know anything. I'm just, what am I gonna do? Like, they're looking for somebody who's willing to learn. And if you are willing to learn, then usually they're happy to have you. And then for people who I guess are a little bit further on in the process of studying, or even for people who are earlier on, I would just say to be selective about what opportunities you say yes to and what things you apply for, what positions you accept, because a lot of people sometimes they say yes to things just because they feel like they need to put it on their resume or something like that. And honestly, that's not the best mindset. And it's not the best way to, like, ensure that your future is a future that you actually want to be working in and living in. If you are doing work now that you care about, you're more likely to be able to do work later that you care about. And so you need to start prioritizing that early on. And similarly, like, if somebody's asking you to work for free and you don't need to work for free, don't work for free. Please don't do that. And so, like, just value yourself and advocate for yourself from, like, the very beginning.
Yeah, really great points, Eliana. Sort of to go off of that, like, when it comes to research, I think it's really easy to be stuck into one thing. And when you get involved in something, it's really easy to get in a routine of it and just stick with it, like, throughout your undergraduate career. But I think like some people may benefit, like, the moment they realize that the research setting is not right for them, or that's not something they're interested in anymore. Like, don't be afraid to, like, tell your PI, like, hey, like, my interests have changed and I would like to research about something else or move on, differently, and then use them as a way to connect to those labs and those research opportunities that you are, like, newly interested about. And so, yeah, like, it's just making sure that you also, like Eliana said, like, advocate for yourself. It's really important because, getting started early on, just like Eliana said, is like, you can have these opportunities to sort of switch different labs and have different research opportunities. And those can better inform you on what your interests are, what you particularly like, sort of what your work style is, who you like working with in terms of, like, communication style and things like that. And so getting a handle of those early on in your undergraduate career will definitely benefit you later on. Yeah, Ali, do you want?
Yeah, I'll add to that. I would say, because personally, I was really nervous to reach out to any professor at the beginning. Just the thought of having to write an email and not like know how to write it or format it, and not expecting what their responses would be was really scary to me, and especially as a freshman. So I would say to definitely take advantage of the programs that we offer. Most of us have participated in at least one of the programs that we have at the Office of Undergraduate Research. I personally, before I did chemistry research, I did SRI, the Science Research Initiative for Cancer Bio, and that kind of helped me in a more like structured environment where you were being led by faculty through the process of applying to certain research groups and learning kind of like very simple research skills. I think that definitely was very beneficial for me to gain that confidence to be able to the next year reach out myself. And if you don't get a response the first time, also, I would not expect you to just email someone and expect to get into their lab. I emailed and applied to probably 20 to 30 programs within STEM, like all over. And I got about 7 responses that like either actually responded or we were full, but you could like join later on. And so I would definitely not be discouraged with that. That is completely normal, especially for certain disciplines. There's a lot more people that are applying for these kind of programs and research groups. So I would just say don't be discouraged and keep trying to reach out twice if you need to, go in person. But yeah, really just like stand up for yourself. And if you want to be in a research group, show them why you do and why you have that passion for research.
Yeah, and to add one more thing, I think like it's really important to do things with intent, right? So like if you're finding a new faculty member, you want to make sure that their interests or research interests align with yours. And then like even if you have one person in mind, it's always great to look at a couple other faculty members in the same interest or field that you're interested in. And by meeting with them or talking with them initially, you can get an idea of like how those research settings will work. And then based off of those, you'll have options to pick from and you'll be more motivated in the lab setting that you do end up picking from it. And it should hopefully excite you after talking to, a couple of professors or a couple of people involved in the research. So you do want to get involved. So that's sort of the advice I give in terms of reaching out to faculty members and finding.
If anybody has any questions.
Yeah, sounds good. So now we're gonna open up to questions. Yeah, and then we just want to remind you that here at the Office of Undergraduate Research, we provide resources to best fit your undergraduate needs and your success. So please utilize those. Like we have many programs that are there to help you get started with research or to get familiar with the research process and style. We also have many funding opportunities to get involved in research as a way to get paid for the work you do. And we also have other series and education series and workshops and styles, just to make sure that if you are researching and you do have any questions about whether it's publishing or presenting or IRB labs or anything like that's very technical or specific to your research, then we are here to help you out and provide you with that information. We want to make sure your research success is best catered, and then we want to make sure we're there, we're here for you. So again, if you ever have any questions, then you can always ask us after this panel. But yeah.
Awesome. So I saw a question come up that asked if any of us have turned our Europe work into publication. So I want to say 2 things about that. Number 1 is whether or not you publish through your lab through an academic journal, the Office of Undergraduate Research has a journal called Range that is specifically for undergraduate research works. In fact, if you want to receive the undergraduate research scholar designation on your transcript when you're graduating, just to show that you did undergraduate research, one of the requirements for that designation is that you submit your work to Range. And so I highly recommend if you have an abstract, if you have work that you did through a Europe program or through a lab, submit to Range. Dr. Fukushima just put it in the chat. Awesome. Submit to Range. And then also to speak on that a little bit, I did do myself, and you guys can speak on it too. I'm sure you have your own experiences. My 2 semesters of Europe, the project that I worked on both of those semesters did end up turning into a publication through a journal external to the university. So in short, you can do both, if that answers that question.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that, like the best resource for specifically turning like your year of work into a paper is to just talk to your faculty member or mentor or advisor. Like they will know what journal outside of Range Journal to publish towards and like what the work is best fitted towards and like what journals to publish to. And so asking your mentor and faculty advisor is the best way to go about that, and they will direct you and help you throughout that process of turning your year of work into a published paper.
Yeah, also to add on that, I also am planning on doing an external publication, hopefully this summer, we'll see, but hopefully this summer. And then also applying and, going to submit to Range too, since I did year out for 2 semesters, so that is a requirement that I have to fulfill. But I saw someone also had a question about conferences and traveling. I had to submit an abstract. I'm going to be attending the American Chemical Society National Conference in New Orleans next month, which is my first conference that I'm presenting at. And so I used the OUR online. There's some like abstract writing tips and things like that. It also helped for my faculty mentor to write that abstract. But even though it is like a smaller abstract, not like full publication or paper, you can still get tips from our office in order to submit things like that. And then if you need to revise it too, we all have our own like office hours and everything that you can find on the OUR website. If you want any help with that, we can always take a look at them. So.
I think the other part of that question maybe was funding for travel.
Yeah.
I remember that you traveled last, do you want to talk about?
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
So I mean, OUR has small grants. One is a travel grant and one is a small grant that tends to go more towards resources, but the small travel grant is up to $500. So that can help support you if you're traveling to go present at a conference or if you're traveling to do research. And then also you can apply for funding through other sources like ASUU has funding sometimes for traveling. If you're in the Honors College, sometimes the Honors College will help fund students who are going to present at conferences. You can also reach out to people within the specific department where you're doing research. Sometimes they have funding either in the specific like lab you're in or in the department or college as a whole for supporting students who are presenting at conferences. So those are all great ways to find funding and to travel and do research. And I have presented at several different conferences. And I've also traveled to do research this past summer. I went to Oahu because I've been working for about a year now on a project related to wine industry. So that was really cool and a great learning experience, and it was really amazing to be able to do research at the archives there and meet with community members and all these different things. So there's lots of different resources if you do want to travel for your research, whether that's presenting or if that's collecting data out in the field.
Have any of you had experienced a conflict with a faculty member? How did you resolve it and what would you do differently?
I would say I didn't have a conflict per se, but I think in some of my experiences, sort of our interests may have not aligned. And so I think what's really important is just communication at that point, communicating what your interests are, what your goals are, especially in that lab or whatever research setting you're in, and then communicating that to the faculty mentor, and then also understanding their expectations of you, right? Because your goals and your what you may think your goals are in the lab may be different from their expectations. And so I think that can be resolved through a lot of communication and making sure y'all are on the same page and what your role is on the lab, how you are expected to contribute. And so that's really important. And then again, like, even if that's still there and things are still not working out, there's still some conflict or just like no matches in what you're interested in, then I think, at that point, you can be professional and or in a professional way, just you can sort of talk about how you can look into, going to different research setting and asking them to connect you with someone else or anything of that sort. But, at the end of the day, I think communication is really, really important to manage and to avoid any conflicts with anyone in any research setting.
How do you manage your class expectations and the expectations of your research lab?
I can start this one. So when I first got into research, so it was spring semester of last year. I personally was so excited to finally be in a research group that I did forget I also am a student. Because I wanted to put so many hours into this new experience, that it did take a couple months for me to realize and find this balance of classes and lab. It also depends, like Sean said, of like the expectations that you set with your PI. You want to make sure that you're not signing up for something that's 60 hours a week while you're an undergraduate. If you can't do 60 hours a week, I personally do 10 hours a week, and that has worked for me. I feel like that's a pretty good balance for my credits. But you definitely have to kind of fit it in by speaking to your PI of like what hours I have a set schedule that I normally attend, and then also meetings and things. You just want to make sure that you're present. And especially when you begin, you want to be part of that group and collaborate and be able to get to know people, not feel like an outsider because you can't make it to certain functions. So just make sure you plan accordingly and talk to your mentor.
Yeah, and I think like just to go off of what Ali said, like your mentor like understands that you're a student and that your grades and your work comes first. And if they understand that, and you can always communicate them if you're like ever in a busy time, stressful time, like work may not be done as effectively as it can, on a normal time, like a normal week. You can communicate that with them, and they like most of the times they should be understanding that you are a student and student priority comes first before your role in the lab. But at the end, but you still have to do your part in the lab. But there will be times where you can just talk to them. They'll be a bit understanding in that case.
Have any of you been assigned a lab duty that you found hard to navigate? If yes, what helps you navigate in a positive way?
That's a great question. So I think that kind of aligns with what you guys were mentioning just now about communication. And as I was saying earlier, I think the biggest step in that is talking to whoever you feel most comfortable with in the lab about how to navigate that duty. And I'm not sure about like what specific duties you might be thinking of or that you may have had in your mind in that question. But some things that have come to my mind in my own experience is, being the undergraduate or being the newer person in the lab, you might be in charge of making certain protocol, like typing up certain protocols or making media or doing kind of the the grunt work, right? Like the less specialized work before you kind of understand what's going on. And that might be a little difficult to navigate when you're also trying to get involved with research, right? Like that's two time commitments on top of your school. So again, I think that the most important thing is communication with people that you feel comfortable with within the lab, your mentor, and then also it's important to remember that the Office of Undergraduate Research has resources for you, staff resources and peer mentor resources like us. And if you're finding that you are in a pickle that's a little bit too difficult to solve by yourself, we're always here to talk and help you out with that.
What's something you wish you had known before you started research?
That's a good question.
Can start.
Yeah.
I would say that kind of depending on the lab that you're in, obviously, like when you join the lab or when you're interviewing for labs, they will tell you kind of duties that they expect of you and the level of independence. But I didn't know how much independence they do give some undergraduates. And one of my first labs, it was very much shadowing. They didn't let you like touch anything, which is understandable because you're, a freshman and there's a lot of expensive equipment depending on the lab that you're in. But it was very much shadowing, and you just follow them around, watch them do their research. But then the lab I'm in now, quickly after a couple months of being trained, I was completely left to do my work independently and then do check-ins. So now, which I never imagined that I would be able to just go in on the weekends, go in any time of day and go conduct chemistry research by myself when I'm like 20 years old. So that was really exciting. It's something I didn't expect, is that as you do get trained, they do actually trust you more and do treat you as more of an equal because they understand that you've had the proper training and know the proper techniques and everything. just as a grad student was, but just on like a lesser scale, because you're still an undergraduate, so.
Yeah, and then I would like to add something. So like, sort of what Ali said, like as an undergraduate researcher, you're probably given like protocols and steps on how to do your research, and you're given guidance on how to go about whatever your research is in whatever setting. But it's really easy to be, sort of just like blindly following it and just continuing on like a day by day, week to week basis. I think one thing I wish I learned was starting to question things from the beginning. Like because a lot of these PIs will have intent as to why they're doing specific things in a specific way. And being able to question that and understand why this step is being done rather than this step, or why you're doing it in this way rather than this way, and being sort of skeptical, but also understanding like sort of the reasoning behind why research is being done in a specific way, or why you know why whatever like guidelines, procedures you're given, sort of like be open to questioning it. And I think I wish I did that early on, because it's led me to understand that research is way more focused on sort of the intent behind it. And good researchers and good like principal investigators will have every single step like methodically thought out, and those are the ones that will have good experiments and usually good results. And so being able to question what you're given as like tasks and roles and why it's important to the bigger picture, I think is really important. And something I wish I did early on, rather than just like following the role of just an undergraduate researcher.
Something I think that I wish I understood before I got involved with undergraduate research too is just the timeline of research in academia. Different disciplines have different timelines in terms of how long a study might take, or how long it might take before you have any results, or before you publish them or share them in any way. And I think that, you might be used to like starting a project and finishing it, and you have to sort of adjust your expectations to realize like the projects you're going to finish are going to be a very small part of a much larger project. And that's not a bad thing. It just helps you understand better that the work you're doing is building upon the work of people who came before you, and the work that you're doing is going to be built on by people who come after you. And so understanding where you fit in that context is important. And it's also helpful to know like that people are going to come after you, because then you can, take better notes or design protocols and different things in such a way that it makes it easy for somebody else to pick up and build on what you have already done, which your PI is going to really appreciate, and whoever comes after is also going to really appreciate. And so part of the work of doing research is thinking about the entire process and where you fit in it, and recognizing what you can do to make that process as smooth as possible for not just yourself, but everyone else.
How has working in research early on informed or changed your future career plans?
I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I think I had a pretty dramatic shift from thinking I was going to be a doctor into doing research and really enjoying it. I still love STEM research, but kind of realizing that that wasn't the direction that I wanted to go in. But I think notably, I wouldn't have been able to make that choice, or have the information to kind of switch gears if I hadn't had lived experience within the field. And like I said, I really enjoyed that experience. So I don't fault the experience at all. It's rather that experience helped me know kind of what experience I wanted next. And I wouldn't have had the time to do that if I had started later on. So I think there is something to be said about getting started early.
Yeah, I also, like Ava, wanted to be a doctor for most of my life. And so when I went into research trying to see if that stereotype was real of whether research is like fully on your own or collaborative, starting that in freshman and sophomore year definitely helped inform my decision. And now med school is not on the table, and I want to do a PhD in organic chemistry, which I never would have imagined if I did actually go into an organic chemistry lab. and have at least a year of experience to kind of see how, like Eliana said, like the timelines of everything, the expectations, and the type of independence you can have and creativity you can have with work.
I was wondering if you guys had any advice on emailing professors for research.
I know you spoke on this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, we do have a template and a lot of resources on the OUR website for that. Normally I point people towards that whenever I have any sort of like peer advising appointments or things like that, because I use that resource myself. I would say some tips I have, like I said, don't be afraid to just do that initial email. And if you're using the template, just make sure it's professional, make sure it's respectful of their time, and show your appreciation that they are taking that time for that email, because they are very busy people, no matter what faculty, what type of fields the faculty members, they are very busy people. So I would say, yeah, just do the initial email. I would wait however long. If they don't respond, that's okay. That's totally normal. If you want to wait like a couple weeks and then send a reminder email, or just make sure that they receive that email. That's also what I did for a lot of the people in programs that I applied to, and that seemed really helpful, because sometimes they do miss it. They're not purposely ignoring emails, hopefully not. So they just might miss it. So if you do send that reminder, it's not nagging in any way. You're just trying to make yourself seen and make sure that your message is delivered to them.
Yeah, and then, sorry, did you?
Oh, I was just gonna say, along the same note, I think also if you meet with an academic advisor, that can sometimes be helpful, because then you can talk about specifically what you're interested in or what you like about your major. And maybe they can help you understand better, like what professors within your major are teaching classes or doing research related to those things. And so you can try to, take a class from somebody that you think you might want to work with, or you can just sort of narrow down your search a little bit and have a little bit more knowledge. So when you're reaching out, you can, show that like, something about them and the research that they've done. And I think that that comes across as a little bit more impressive than just being like, I want to do research because I'm pre-med and I need to do research. But like showing that like you actually know what they're doing and you can articulate how it relates to your goal.
That's like the best piece of advice. Yeah.
Yeah, and to go off of that, like, look into these faculty members and sort of the research they're doing, like read a couple of the papers, even if you have no idea what they're saying, like it's still like good idea to figure out what are they actually saying, and taking time to figure out, what the publications are about, what research are they currently doing or they previously done, and then use that to highlight like any qualities that are related to that. So like anything that you may have in your past experience or in your college, in your time in college or in high school, where you have done something similar to whatever research they talked about, and you can tie that in to make it more personal and more catered to their like research lab topics. So yeah, definitely doing your research in order to apply the research. So you can find us on our website at our.utah.edu. You can always we are undergraduate research leaders here at the office, so you can always contact us with any research questions or schedule an appointment. We are here for your research success and answer any questions. And then fill out the evaluation form. Our building is in the Still Center, which is next to the Alumni House across the Union Building if you ever want to come see us in person. So yeah, all of our information can be found on our website at our.utah.
Well, thank you, Eliana, Ali, Ava, and Kishan for today's panel. You guys gave great advice and we truly appreciate it. And everybody, don't forget the evaluation